Thanks for taking some time to be with me today. What are you waiting for? Honestly. So, what are you waiting for? Windows 10 apparently is dead, although some people are still trying to keep that body going. I, on the other hand, don't have any mercy for anybody who continues to use a computer operating system that wantingly and publicly, and boy, they just take all their data, take everything you want. You can't protect yourself from them. Anyway, Windows 11 is basically, for all intent and purposes, is just that's what you're doing with with your money. Oh, that's a horrible picture. I don't know if that's a clickbait picture, but there went Windows 11. I have no mercy for you. I'm sorry. What are you guys thinking? I don't even know where to begin, except to say that if you're still using Windows 10 unprotected, good luck to you. If you're using Windows 10 and paid Microsoft to continue to receive upgrades for the next year, sucker. And if you're reverting back to like Windows 7 unprotected, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, that's your best option. If you want to continue using Windows, your best option is to go back to Windows 7, and that's what I think. And here's my reasoning behind it. The technology that's available for Windows 7 doesn't allow you for much in the way of AI. So the only AI that you're going to get with Windows 7 is browser-based AI. That's the way I see it. I could be wrong, and you know what? Likely I am, because a lot of times I don't get the whole picture. But here we go. My idea is that the only AI you're going to get is browser-based AI. So the ability of a hacker to use AI to get into your system, it won't be able to communicate with anything in your system. And I can imagine the effort. The effort is not worth the reward of what it's going to take to hack into an older Windows operating system like Windows 7. So speaking of Windows operating systems, this is what we get. I received a comment the other day from a user, and he was basically saying this. He was saying, because you're having problems with your Linux Mint operating system, this is why I continue to use Windows, because I don't want to deal with the headaches that can happen from time to time. Well, here's my answer. You've gone through all of these Windows systems, and all of them have had real issues and problems until you get to Windows 7. Windows 7, I think that was probably the best that they've had. So we can go through all of these. So when I started using computers, this is where I started. I started Windows 3.0 in 1990. That was my first Microsoft desktop computer. Yeah, when I was a kid. Yeah, we all had those little, what did they have there? I had a Texas Instrument 94A, whatever the heck that was. Some people had Commodores, some people have, Apple computers, whatever they had in those days. Well, but after I grew up and became like an adult, our first computer was Windows 3.0, quickly replaced by Windows 3.1. And they were slow machines. They had their, they weren't bad. I mean, honestly, for the time that you're working in and what you had and the technology and all this kind of stuff, that's great. And so I don't know where your evolution in all this is. When did you come along with Windows? Because Windows was unpolished through Windows 1, 2, 3, 3.1, Windows 95. Windows 95 was a breakthrough. Because the internet was, starting to get populated. We were past the point of just the forums or whatever they called those message boards and stuff. We were getting past that. We were actually getting into actual like www.com, right, kind of stuff. So the Windows 9s were a little bit better. They were getting in there. And then the ME, like the ME was a mess. Windows ME stood for mess. Windows mess. It was horrible. It was buggy. It didn't work. It looked bad. It was just horrible. Windows XP, Windows Vista. XP wasn't bad. I think it wasn't bad. I kind of remember XP was okay. Just okay? I think it was just okay. Windows Vista was crap too. Yeah, they were all crap. They were pretty much crap. I remember them being crap. I remember them, the rollbacks that you had to do, you had to, all that stuff. I wasn't much of a computer guy, I think, because the Windows operating system didn't give me really what I wanted, or maybe I just didn't find it yet. But I wasn't much of a Windows guy. Windows 7 came out in 2009. I remember I bought my laptop in 2010, and Windows 7 was installed with it, and I think it was probably the best. I upgraded to Windows 8 and then downgraded back to Windows 7. 8.1, I didn't even bother checking it, and Windows 10 was forced upon you. So this was the first step in realizing that Windows wants you to use the system that they want you to use. They force Windows 10. They forced it upon the Windows 7 users. And it was a pain in the butt to go back to Windows 7. Because when they ended Windows 7, there was no support. There was zero, no more. You couldn't download. There was no more updates. There was nothing on Windows 7. Completely not supported. Like right away. I think, and that was it. So when you went to Windows 10, you didn't have a choice. You just went. That's how I remember it. I could be wrong. I mean, that's 10 years ago now. So Windows 10 has been going pretty much nonstop for 10 years. And they're giving it the boot. And they're giving you a 1 year grace time where if you can afford it, you can pay them to protect. It's like the mob. So you're paying the mob to protect your interest, your business, your whatever's on your computer. You're paying somebody else to protect it. So I guess that's why I switched to Linux in, I guess, 2019. Switched to Linux. That was a big reason. The big reason was that I just couldn't trust my Windows anymore. I refused. I thought, why am I paying Norton? Why am I paying McAfee, whatever the heck it's called, for protection? Why pay that? And then you don't pay that, and then you pay the price. Is it a conspiracy? Like, are these computer viruses put out there by the very companies that protect you from it? So there's a team of hackers that work for antivirus companies that just hack the virus, which is hacking your computer, to find it, isolate it, disseminate it, get rid of it. How do they know? They gotta know something. So the whole idea of showing you this Windows list of all of the Windows operating systems that came along was to illustrate the point that you've worked through more than one edition of Windows, and in all that time you're still waiting for Linux to be perfect before jumping on board with Linux. I think that's the biggest thing that I got to deal with. It's like you don't want any growing pains with Linux. You want perfect, but you settled for all this crap, and it doesn't do you any favors. Anyway, I'm curious to see what people think about this, because honestly, I have yet to hear people with their Linux journeys to be absolute chaos, because it never is. There's two types of people that have problems: those people that don't understand what they're getting into, and those people who expect life to be easy. If you expect life to be easy, then stick to your Windows. You're going to have easy. Yeah, so give me your thoughts on all this. If you're still using Windows waiting for Linux to be perfect. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me down here at Hooked on Linux, and we'll talk to you soon.